Hi guys, welcome back to another installment of the Make It Happen Summit. Now, this guy, Nic, is amazing, is inspirational, and I hope it resonates what he actually says to quite a lot of you guys out there, because it really did resonate with me, a lot of things what he was saying. Now, when it comes down to it, it's one of those things where you've just got to listen to what other people are saying that are in the industry and have businesses, and just take note of what they're saying, because if you take note of what they're saying and apply it to your own, then you will also be successful as they are. So thank you very much for watching again, guys. Sorry for my little spiel there, and hope you enjoy this next video.
Welcome, Nic.
Hi.
And welcome to everyone else. I see lots of people just joining. Let me see, we are from all over. Hello everyone, I see the chats coming in. This is so good. From Singapore, from Durban, South Africa, Cape Town. Please tell us where you're calling in from. We have Suzanne from Prague. Oh my gosh, Nic, it has been such a great, I want to say 24 hours. No, it's been more than 24 hours, because we're at 12 o'clock. We started yesterday at 9 o'clock. This morning, actually, because you know that we are focusing on energy, you and I specifically today, but so also our summit is focusing on energy this morning, and we kicked off 8 a.m. with a virtual yoga session. Yeah,
nice.
So much fun. I would love to know if any of you joined for that too. So please let me know if you've been active since 8 o'clock. And I mean, Nic, thank you so much for making time for us. Thank you for going to share your knowledge, your tips, your experiences with us. We have obviously been massive fans of Future Females, also me and Lauren personally, and our HQ team, of your products that you've been building. You have been working with so many entrepreneurs. Just a quick thing for all of you out there, more of an intro to Nic. Nic has built his first website when you were 11, and then your first company at 16. He has launched a book which we completely love, just completely addicted to it. Do, Fail, Learn, Repeat: the truth behind building a business. You have also launched so many things, but we'll talk about that more in the chat. Yeah, so just welcome and thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you today, and I hope the audience gets as much value as I'm sure I will.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with a question that I've been asking, kind of like anyone that I meet now. Looking back at 2020, what do you understand about your life now more than you would have a year ago?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and mainly because the pandemic hasn't really fundamentally affected my work and my life, other than the normal effects that it's had on everyone else, like the mental being locked up and blah, blah, blah. So I think the thing that I've learned is how much is in my control in spite of external variables that may come into play. So I've been locked down in a relatively small 1-bedroom flat with my partner and 2 dogs, with no garden. We normally walk our dogs twice a day. But in spite of all of that, I have exited a company, launched another book, started an online course, and am launching my first masterclass on how to start a side hustle next week. So the point is, a year ago, I believed that you needed to lean on a lot of things, and a lot of your success depended on others, the government, funding. There's excuses abound. And during this pandemic, I've seen so many people flourish in the face of this adversity, that I now understand fully that the responsibility is yours. There are endless excuses. There are endless reasons not to start something. There are endless reasons why you might fail. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, with your own life. You make the choices. The choices are yours to make.
Oh my gosh, that is probably one of the best learnings actually that you can have, and almost want to be grateful for, just to have, I have the power.
Yeah, and it's one of the interesting things. I hate this part of awards shows. You all know the awards shows where the person gets the award and they stand up and they thank everyone and their aunt for their success. The person they never thank is themselves. And I fundamentally hate that. I worked to get where I am. You worked to get where you are. You should be able to thank yourself and go, you know what? I did a good job. And that's okay.
I love that. You know, Shirley, Shirley from the UK is a tech hub. We had a chat with her last night and our wrap up drinks. And Relene Strauss, who was our first speaker yesterday, she mentioned the glass balls in our lives and the rubber balls. And Shirley said her takeaway from that was she herself is actually a glass ball. If she drops herself, then life is not going to work out. So again, just validating that. So true.
Yeah.
So going on to like the learnings, I believe that you have a growth mindset. You state on your website loud and clear daily that you ask yourself and those that surround you questions every single day of how are you living the kind of life that makes you happy? And I am so intrigued by what would be these questions that you ask yourself and these around you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I think the more I dig into this whole premise, the more I'm shocked at how few people do actually ask themselves interesting questions that challenge their status quo. So I don't really like comfortable. I'm averse to comfort. I did a TEDx talk a while ago about living at the forefront of incompetence. And that's how I like to live. I like to be right at the front of not knowing what the hell I'm doing, because it pushes me to learn. So the kinds of questions that I ask myself frequently, daily, weekly, monthly, annually, and in bigger and more philosophical versions of these questions as the years go on, are things like, is this what you want to spend the next 2 hours doing? This particular thing. Is this the best use of your next 2 hours? And then if we expand that, if you're going to start a business, do you want to do this thing for the next 5 or 10 years? If you don't, then perhaps you shouldn't start it. Is this job you're about to take the one that you want to dedicate the next 5 years of your life to? And those are the kinds of things that I push myself to. For me, time is quite a pivotal premise in my life. My definition of freedom and success is having the time to travel. So that's all I want, is the freedom to travel when and where I want, when I want to do that. That is my definition of success. And I'm stunned at how few people have a definition of success or a definition of failure. And I call those my success and failure triggers. I have these and I constantly reassess them. Myself and my partner, who I've been with for 15 years, every year we have an annual general meeting, an AGM, where we discuss our own success and failure triggers. How was the year? What do we want next year? Do we still want to live where we want to live? All these things are up for grabs. And these questions, what they do is they help me shape my worldview, and they help me put everything I do in context of that worldview. So if my definition of freedom is to have the time to travel, well, did I do that this year? And will I be able to do that with the kind of job I'm choosing? And does having dogs, which I have 2 of them, allow me to travel freely? Well, no, that's complicated. So then the risk reward benefit comes in. So those are the kinds of questions that I ask of myself and those around me. One of the more pivotal ones that I ask is specifically around the relationships that I engage in and the network that I build. I'll often analyze whether the person I'm spending time with is valuable to me. And I don't mean in an exchange of money kind of way. I mean, do we help each other make each other better? That's the kind of person I want to hang around. I don't hang around anyone who tries to make me a worse version of myself, and that extends to my family, to my oldest friends, to my colleagues. If you are trying to make me worse, then you're not someone I want in my life.
I think that's gold, that feedback that you give. It's so funny, last night Lauren and I were like reflecting on things, and I was also saying, I'm so selfish about my energy. But also yesterday from some of the speakers, they were talking about relationship building and where are you willing to spend your time and your energy on. The value of network, we spoke about that. How do we surround ourselves, or who do we surround ourselves with? And also for a lot of these women joining from all over the world today, they are either, going to make the change. So either they are dreamers and they want to start, or they are just in like the beginning stages. And so how do we now step from where we are to where we want to be. And where we want to be, we have to surround ourselves with different people, with the entrepreneurs, with the people that lift us, you know, and that networking is so important. I also love the fact that you bring in your family and your partner on that reflection and goal setting. People don't actually think that they should do that. They go like, you know, this is weird, but so much value that you get if you do that with your partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's a couple of things on that. The one is in this masterclass that I'm doing, the first day is just dedicated to how do you set your life up to run a side hustle? Because most people just ignore that part. What happens to your friends and your family, your kids and your dogs and your TV and your book reading if you've now started a business? It affects everyone in your life, because maybe on Saturday you can't go and have a drink with your friends if you're in a country where that's allowed. So you do have to involve other people. That is a complicated thing. And then the other comment on your network, everybody knows that saying that you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I want to put a spin on that. I like to think and remember that I become the worst parts of the 5 people I spend the most time with. So you're going to pick up the best habits of those people and the worst habits of those people. Are you happy with the worst habits of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Because if you're not, maybe those are the wrong people to hang around with.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I haven't heard that one before. So that is a wake-up call. That is worth reflecting on.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example, right? So one of my best friends, this sounds insane to say, but he races Ferraris in Europe, and he's an entrepreneur and a UX designer. His worst habit is that he is stubborn as hell. That's it. He's not racist. He's not an idiot. He's not an asshole. He's just stubborn. And that's okay. I'm happy to take on that worst quality because maybe I need to be a bit more stubborn. But if my best friend's worst habit was that he was a little bit racist, maybe I should reconsider that. You know what I mean?
So good. Actually, you also, my next question, and maybe you touched a little bit on this already, but I would love to know how often you actually do this, because I know you've got this growth mindset and you've got this review with your partner and your life. How often do you set goals for yourself?
Yeah, this one I actually gave a lot of thought to. It's a daily occurrence. I'm constantly battling with myself on what I should have done better, what I could have done better, what I should do more of or less of. In terms of big goal setting, though, I think that's a little bit more fundamental. Many years ago, maybe 6 years ago, 6 years ago, when I turned 30, I wrote an article about what it was like for me turning 30 because I hated it. And one of the things I finished on was plan in decades, think in years, work in months, and live in days. That's kind of how I plan my goals, is I live in the day, I work in the weeks, and then I extend out to the years and the decades. And I think at most of our ages, between the ages of 25 and 35, 40, if you aren't planning in decades, I think that there's something fundamentally wrong with the way you're looking at the world. Because what you do today does affect what happens next month and next quarter and next year. So it is very imperative to think to yourself, when I turn 40, what does my life look like? Is that what I'm working towards? Because there's no one day where, I'm 40 and all of a sudden you're an adult. That's just not how it works. You become the adult you lead into. So yeah, I do set myself these goals constantly. And it's tiring and very, very difficult to live with, but that is how I am.
And also that fine line about, if I am constantly working towards goal or reviewing things, am I breaking myself down? So you shouldn't be doing that. To all of you listening, don't be breaking yourself down. Be aware, be conscious about where you are, what is working, what not, but just this constant growth. I
100%.
I wanted to add to something you said. Now I cannot remember. That's okay. I might come back to that.
I wanted to add something that's flown out of my head. So let's move to the next question.
Okay, well, please come back if you do remember, because we would love to know. I've been reading some of your things. Obviously, we connected in our network, and so you've been writing about 2 things, which I loved: hobbies and habits. And so I'm intrigued to know what you think about hobbies.
I love this statement that the most interesting people I know smash together unexpected things. They're not, yeah, you know, we've all met the person who is just a lawyer and all they can talk about is law, and they read about law and they think about law. That's great because you're going deep and you're becoming an expert. I think that hobbies should expand your brain and they should expand your experience of the world. So yeah, in general, I think hobbies are a great thing. I think that you should be passionate about a lot of things, and they should be different from your work, because it's the perspective of the world that I like from different people. And if you've got the same perspective because you are a lawyer and that's all you talk about and that's how you see the world, that's great. But it's not really that interesting to me because I've met a lawyer before. If you're a lawyer who also collects pink fluffy slippers as well as builds woodwork and has a collection of birds that you like to take photos of, now you're getting to me. Now your hobbies are starting to make you a deep and rich person that intrigues me. So yeah, I think hobbies are an imperative way to exist.
100% agree with you. And I agree with like how intriguing it is. I also believe it links into like our creativity. And me personally, I believe creativity is like the foundation of productivity. Actually, it's, you know, that's where innovation, that's where productivity, effectiveness, efficiency comes from. I have another question because I said habits and hobbies, but I'm reading the comments and they reminded me what I wanted to say about the decades, days, and weeks. And so two things. Lauren and I actually spoke about, you know, when we met you years ago, and at that stage you have just done that reflection about the year that you put out just to focus on your finances and the year, you know,
Yes.
those things. And so guys, I can't touch on that with Nic actually right now, maybe if we've got time afterwards, but I would really recommend that you know, if you do want to think about how to spend your time, to go and read what he did for a whole year, where he spent his energy for a whole year just focusing on one thing, getting one thing in his life ready.
It's worth mentioning what that is about. So basically every year I set myself one big thing that I'm going to try and do. And that particular year was get control of my finances and understand my own finances better. And at the end of that year, I had gotten rid of my financial advisor because they steal money from you, and done all these interesting things. And every year I kind of just set myself a big goal to learn about. And the year after that was learning about physical fitness. The year after that was learning about mental fitness. And so I progress and use all of these years that we've been given to kind of improve the way that I am.
Yeah. And also the thing about the decades, what you said about planning for decades, one thing that always resonates with me is, you know, the small habits that we build today is building that person that you want to be in 10 years. So you might think that you only need to start working on it in 8 years if, you know, you want to have this wealth, or you want to be healthy, or you want to be mentally good, or you know, even on skills. But every single day making that time, and being diligent on it, right? Consistency will build that person or that whatever you are working towards over time.
Absolutely agree. And on habits, it's an important thing. I actually wrote an article about this, a very short one this week, about your muscle memory. So I was watching, I took a course on how to do a Rubik's Cube, and I was watching on Netflix this series on the speed cubers, and they were saying that their brain saves and uses 300 algorithms that help you solve a Rubik's Cube, and they can finish a Rubik's Cube in anything between 2 point something seconds and 7 seconds. And it made me really wonder, what are we teaching ourselves every day about our own muscle memory? What habits do we give ourselves that reinforce the negative traits that we don't like about ourselves? For example, oh, you know, I can't save, I just don't have money, or I'm not disciplined to save. No, you are, you just choose not to. And that's something you can change. You can change, and that's what I said all the way at the beginning, is you have agency. It's on you. There's nothing that is built in that cannot be worked on and improved. And you have the choice to improve those things or not. And that's up to you. And I love that idea of muscle memory and what we teach ourselves that reinforces the negative or the positive.
Oh my gosh, so true. Also, thinking about what you say yes to means you're saying no to something else. So it's your
100%.
choice. It's that choice.
Yeah. It's a
going now
difficult
that
thing, that idea of saying no. Like, this is something I've done videos on. I spent my 20s saying yes to everything, and I've spent my 30s saying no to everything, because saying no is more important than saying yes.
I know I got that book, I think it's by Shonda Rhimes, saying yes. For a year she just said yes, and so I got that for my birthday once, and I just thought, I can't, for me it would be the worst thing, because I'm already such a yeser. I should just say no.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't read that book. I hope whoever gave it to me is not watching this anyway. While you touched on on habits, and yes, also you have written some really amazing things. And so what do you think are the habits that an entrepreneur should instill or like cultivate?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I don't think that there is a single entrepreneurial brush that anyone can be painted with. I think there's so many different routes to be an entrepreneur, definitions of what an entrepreneur is. So I think that the habits need to work for you. And I think this is more important than the habits you have every day, is working out what habits work for you. The ones that I think are definitively across the board good for you is something I call the sacrifice fallacy. This is really important for any young entrepreneur to understand. You don't have to sacrifice your mental and physical well-being to build a business. And I spent my 20s thinking that that wasn't the case. I was physically so unhealthy because of stress. I had kidney stones twice. I had a stomach ulcer that put me in hospital. I had insomnia. I lost my hair. That's not even a joke. I legitimately went bald from my first really big business that I raised money from. So the habits unequivocally that make you a better person and better entrepreneur, there is research to back up all of this, is sleep properly. Get a good night's sleep. There literally is no medicine better than 8 hours of sleep in the night. I know that you're 21 and you think you're different and better, but trust me, in my bald head, you're not. You're not different or better than any human who's ever lived. You need to exercise. That is unequivocally an important part of operating at a different level. You need to eat better, different foods, and I don't mean eat amazingly all the time. I've got a sweet tooth, but you need to eat healthy food in their natural form. And those three things, that's it. And then the last one that adds to this is, fundamentally as entrepreneurs, we believe that we have to put everything and everyone else in front of us. And that's just wrong. You need to put yourself at the top of your priority list. Sleep, eat, and train. Then you're a better human to work with. No one wants to work with someone who is not healthy, isn't sleeping well, and isn't eating well, because they become really difficult. And it's this fundamental flaw that we think we put ourselves at the bottom of the priority list and everyone will love us. It's just wrong. Self-care is not selfish. And I think that's a mistake we make in today's world.
Wow. I don't know of you, everyone who's tuned in, but I mean, Nic is just speaking straight to me. I feel like inspired and reprimanded. Nic,
No one has ever said that before. I'm happy. That's actually the perfect tone. Inspired but reprimanded. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with so many things that you're saying, and I want to also say to everyone out there, we think eating healthy, sleeping, making sure that what did you say? Yeah, sleeping, eating,
And exercise.
We think that focusing on ourselves is selfish. A lot of the times we'll think, no, we're adding value, all of these things. Actually, you're stealing from the people around you. You're stealing from your business, because if you're not being productive and effective, you are not adding value in the way that you should be. So maybe think about that a little bit when stealing from yourself and your business and all of these things. And so talking about things that you've then given up, or making decisions, where are you going to spend your time, on what, etc. What is something that you have given up on, and how did you justify this decision? And maybe like there's an example, but also how do you always make this decision?
Do you mean given up on in my personal life and business life, an idea I've let go, or?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you've got an example in both, but generally, like, have you even given up? Have you ever given up on something that was quite a big deal? And what made you give it up? What was your thought process? Why did you decide on that?
Um, yeah, there's so much stuff. I think most of the things that we need to learn to let go of and give up feed our ego and make us feel like better people. So a lot of that stuff I've had to let go of. This is maybe a little bit more philosophical than I think you intended this question to be, but most South African men are not big on mental health and seeking mental health assistance. So I had to give up on that pretense, and I went and saw a psychologist, and I continue to see a psychologist every couple of months because I refer to him as my mental coach. And I think that if professional athletes can have coaches for their training, and why can't entrepreneurs have coaches for their mental well-being? So I had to give up on the idea that I can control my brain and I'm the best person to fix my problems, because it's just fundamentally not true. You can't read the label from inside the bottle. You can't solve your thoughts from inside your own brain. So I took that leap, and it was genuinely one of the best things I ever did. I've had to give up on businesses. I spent my first 10 years as an entrepreneur failing, from the age of 16 to the age of 26. 10 years, 9 businesses, back-to-back failure. And that was tough, but a really good lesson. And that actually is where the first book was born out of. Do Fail, Learn, Repeat is literally a retelling of my failures. And then a more practical example from a business perspective, when I was 20 odd, 20-ish, I raised my first angel funding, about 250,000 Rand. I don't know how much that converts to in euros or pounds. And 4 days later, I gave it back. Because I had absolutely no idea what to do with this money. And what would invariably have happened was we would have blown the money, lost the network, and destroyed this connection that we had. So myself and my co-founders decided to give the money back, shut the business down, and live to fight another day, which we did. And I didn't get into debt, and it was an amazing thing. Really good for my ego to understand that it's fine to walk away from things. And that's why now I talk about failure triggers. Do you define what point at which you will walk away from this thing? Because something a lot of entrepreneurs do is they marry their idea and they don't believe in divorce. And it's fine to leave a business. You're a smart person. Investors back jockeys, not horses. You will live to fight another day. And my view on failure is really that simple. If the thing you're doing is not going to kill you, do it, fail, move on, and then try again.
That's really good. That's so nice. Okay, so speaking about energy, where we focus on, where do we spend our time? One thing that I also picked up on something that you once mentioned, that was actually one of your posts on LinkedIn, is your out of office reply. And I'm just going to say this, and I'd love for you to explain to everyone joining, what do you say on your out of office?
So the caveat on this is I have taken that out of office off, and I'll tell you why. So the first thing is, yes, for about 5 months of this year, basically before lockdown started, I put an out of office, a permanent out of office on my email, telling people that email is not my job. Email is not a priority for me. My job is to think and create and write and produce videos and build businesses, but my job is not to respond to your email. I think it was an investor called Chris Sacca who said that email is someone else's to-do list for your day, and that's how I felt. I got overwhelmed by my need to check email, this obsessive refresh. So I just stopped, and that email response went up, and I've had everyone tell me how amazing it is and how jealous they are, but that email response is an internal requirement so that I can focus on the work that I want to do. I'm now done building that out. So now it's about opening up my email and selling it. So I've shifted from a work to a sales mode in my life and what I'm doing. So now my email response is just no response. Let's open up for email, contact me, and take my masterclass, and let's do some work type of thinking.
Oh, that's great. Also interesting for me and good for me to know also.
The point there is that you control your time, right? Yeah. Is that if you don't want to do email, and obviously this doesn't apply if you work in a big corporate office and email is your job, but for me, there are different ebbs and flows in my career. It's my time. I get to choose what I work on, and that is a great privilege. And I don't want other people dictating where I spend my time.
Exactly. And I think, that might have sounded extreme to people who read that, but I think for everyone else, it just actually goes back to how you spend your time. How do you lay out your day? You don't need to recheck these things all the time. Decide where you want to spend your time. What is important to reach your goals in that day, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So many things that has been happening for you lately. What is one of the proudest things that you've learned?
Recently?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. I read obsessively a million different things all the time. I think from a business perspective, I've spent the last 4 months on marketing funnels and understanding a variety of things. And a lesson I've relearned in my career that I've recently relearned is that people buy products from people they trust. And this is a very difficult thing. In the world we live in, everyone's got a million followers. It doesn't mean that people trust you. And I think the world is shifting towards this idea of micro influence, and the word of mouth is becoming relevant again. That if you tell someone that I'm good, they're going to believe you because they trust you. And it's trust by referral. So I've spent a long time over the last 6 months thinking about how to build trust, how to make people understand that I'm not trying to dictate how they live their lives, but I've suffered so they don't have to. So yeah, I think building value and real authentic trust in your audience is so key. And that's why, I mean, even in the comments, you guys all get the sense that I'm just being honest. You can take it or leave it. It doesn't bother me. If you don't listen to me, your life is the same. It doesn't affect me. But this is what I know works for me. And this is what I know makes me sleep better and feel better. So that level of authenticity and trust, I think, is just so important. And I've had to relearn that lesson.
So 2 things that I love about your comment is obviously we know, the trust that you need to build with customers, but I also love how you say how it makes you feel. It makes you feel good. And so you can get up tomorrow morning and just feel good about yourself. You feel at peace. You don't lie to anyone. You can just go on with life. Be effective. Really love that.
100%. I'm just authentic, and I promise you now, Serena can vouch for this. If you meet me tomorrow in the streets, I will be the same. I will talk to you in the same way. I will swear. I will be the same. This is just what you see is what you get, and it's the easiest way to be. It's how I vet people. If you don't like me being abrasive, then we don't have to be friends. That's cool. I got enough friends.
So Nic, I'm just because just on a personal note, I'm thinking about how you sometimes go like, "Hey Serena, how are you?" And I'm like, "Actually, Nic, do. I'm like, maybe you didn't want to know this. And you're like, no, this is real. Love it.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what I expect back, right? Is if I'm honest with you, I expect you to be honest with me. And it's fine if you don't want to be, but you can. And I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not what I meant. I ask you because I genuinely actually care.
Okay, so I do want to touch a little bit on something that you've been working on, but also because this is the Make It Happen Summit. And so we have over 10,000 entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, who's joining us for these 2 days from all over the world, from America, Australia, Europe, Singapore, Africa, on how to start. Some people have been thinking about this idea that they've had, and they just, they now have the confidence to start it. We've been talking about there's still 4 months left in 2020. And if we look back at 2020,
there are only 4 months left in 2020.
No, that is not the point. Nick, you're supposed to say yes.
Serena, Jesus.
So how do we want to look back at 2020? Do we want to go, oh, the COVID year? Or do we want to go like, oh, this is the year that I actually started, and this is how I'm going to walk into 2021. So a few tips, please, for our audience to start that side hustle.
Cool. So I think the first thing is I'll tell you about my lockdown briefly. As it started, I realized that I had a set of skills that the world would probably really want to understand in the next 2 years. And that set of skills is building stuff. I've spent 20 years from the age of 16 till 36 building stuff. So I decided to write a book called How to Start a Side Hustle and publish it on my website. And it sold relatively well. So I turned that into an online course called How to Start a Side Hustle. And that did relatively well. So now I'm doing an in-person masterclass called How to Start a Side Hustle that's over 2 days. And the key thing for me is the overarching premise here is don't feel pressure. It's okay if your version of 2020 is to just make it out alive. That is okay. You don't have to bend to this pushing culture of, oh, while I was in lockdown, I wrote a book. That's what I did. That's how I got through. That was my coping mechanism, was to write a book and help people. Yours might have been to hunker down, look after your mental health, get through the week, keep your job, and live to fight another day. That is perfectly okay. Don't let anyone else pressure you into what your 2020 should have been. It should have been whatever it was. That's cool. Like that, you can't fix that. So let that be. But if you are looking to start something and you are scared of failure and you're wondering what's going to happen, all I'd like to say is you will never be younger than you are today. That's the first piece of advice. Is you think you're waiting. This call right now is as young as you'll ever be. That minute that just passed, you were younger then than you are right now. And if that's
I
the
feel
world
like
we
going
live
like
in,
this now.
no, but like it's true, right? If that's how you see the world, then today is the day. Now is when you should start. What are you going to wait for another year? Those people who wait for New Year's Day to like quit stuff, I don't understand that. Time is a made-up construct by humans. So why not give up that thing you hate today? Because you're giving yourself 4 months ahead. That's how that works. So if you're looking to start something, just start. If you're worried about failure, if it's not going to kill you, you haven't failed, you've just learned a lesson. Just reframe the way that you look at those things. If the people around you are telling you that you're crazy and you shouldn't do it, maybe they're the wrong people to have around you. Maybe you need to get better people that surround you so that you can build the thing you want. If you don't have an idea for a side hustle, I do cover this in my masterclass, but if you don't have an idea for something, I tell people to write a pros list. What are you really good at? Can you teach someone a language? Do you have a really big car that you can help people move junk out of their house? Are you very organized and you can be a virtual assistant? Name something that you're good at. Just write a pros list. Forget about the cons. Everyone's got them. And then see if there's anyone in your friends, family, or fools, the 3 Fs, friends, family, or fools, who will pay you for one of those skills. And I guarantee you, if you go and find an executive and ask her if she needs you to help book something for her, she'll say yes. And then you've got a job. So that's how all these things are roadblocks. I mean, it's not a new word, but I call them roadblocks. You just put roadblocks up in your way so that you don't do them and you have an excuse. Now is the time. The world has shown us that if there ever was a time, it's right now. The other thing that blows me away is all those people who are delaying celebrations for, that bottle of champagne that everyone's like, I'm going to keep that for an important day. When? When is that important day? It's now. The global pandemic showed us that.
Oh, that's so true. And I'm just thinking, Lauren, who's just close by, she just loves celebrating. She believes we should celebrate every single day and a lot of things. And we spoke about it last night at the wrap up drinks also. And also we had a networking session too yesterday, but specifically the one that I was in. There's actually a person who said, no, I don't have an idea. Where do I start? I really hope that he's listening to your talk too.
You can come and take my masterclass and I will help you. That's where you start. And also the other thing is we try and reinvent stuff. You don't need to reinvent stuff. You need to do them cheaper, faster, or better. That's it. That's how you start something. It's really, really simple.
So great. So I have one more question, but before I ask this, guys, we're going to have like 5 minutes, probably, maybe a little bit more if Nic is going to allow that for us. So if you have any questions, throw them in here. Nic is open to some Q&As from the...
Yes, and I do have time, so there's no stress.
Yay. Okay, I see already there's questions, but just my last one to you is one want and one need you will strive for in 2021 or the next 12 months, whatever.
Cool. I want to be more mobile. So I've already structured my life in this way. Everything I do is remote as of the 1st of January this year. I want to structure my life so that I'm mobile and I can live and work anywhere at any time. And that, again, you can see it feeds into my one North Star, which is having the freedom to travel, and building a remote life is the way to do that. So I want to be more remote. One need, I need to learn how to turn my brain off. And I'm proactively working on that with things like meditation and very active downtime. So I carve out time in my day to not work. Because I do have an obsessive compulsive work disorder. So yeah, those are my one want and my one need.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really great.
Sure.
And I mean, for those of you that can challenge yourself to think about some wants and some needs that you want to achieve, do share it with Nic and myself. We'll be really interested to see you would actually want to do. So let me go to
so
the
many
Q&A.
questions.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, you'll probably be reading with me, but so
Yeah.
this is so inspiring. Please will you talk a little bit about how to actually create an online course? Want to touch on that?
Yeah, I'll touch on that one. Obviously, it's a much bigger conversation, but I had to learn all of this for myself. So really, I built this out of necessity. I think I had stuff that I was an expert at, and I wanted to get it out. So having written the book was a great template for me to have courses to get through. So each chapter is now a course in my book, part of the course. And I just went and Googled online course, and I found a website called Thinkific, and I picked Thinkific for various reasons. You can look at your own, there's lots of options. And I literally sat at the same desk that I'm at now, using the same camera, recorded the videos, uploaded the book and the content, and in 2 weeks I had an online course. The key thing is, what are you good enough at to teach someone? And honestly, if you're a great guitar player, there's someone in the world who's worse than you that you can teach. You don't have to be a PhD level graduate to teach someone. You just need a student and a teacher. So that's my view.
Absolutely. And again, what you think is normal, someone else might value. You know?
Exactly.
So yeah, interesting question for you personally. You know, if you've got you've created this life where you can now work remotely, do you still think and feel like South Africa has to be base, or do you feel like you need to live here to continue what you're doing?
It's a really good question, and actually stunningly no one has asked me in the last couple of years. So in line again with my North Star, South Africa is not the place that I think I will live in forever, because we are so far away from everything. Traveling anywhere from South Africa involves at least a 10-hour flight to get to the center of the world, to then travel somewhere else. So it's very likely that I probably will base myself in multiple different countries in the next 10 or 15 years. I don't want to live in one place for more than a couple of years. I like to move. My partner and I move literally every 12 months in Cape Town. I've lived here 12 years. I've lived in 13 different places because we like to move. So that will probably continue on. I'm going to get a little bit serious about South Africa for the moment. My views are very bearish. I think that we are in for a generational problem. I think that if any of you have kids that are between the ages of 2 and 10, this will still be an issue when they are my age at 36. I think the corruption, the crime, the economy are dire enough that everyone who can should be thinking about building income streams that are global, and living in South Africa is great. That works. Low cost base, really great weather. Cape Town is a beautiful place to live. So I love living here. But we are in for very, very, very difficult times, and we should all be mentally prepared for that. It's going to get worse before it gets better. All the indicators say that. Sorry to say, but we can move on from the downer into my morning routine or my hobbies. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. So please do share.
Cool. So I'll start with my morning routine. It's a flurry of activity from about 5:30 in the morning. Wake up at 5:30, then exercise for about 30 to 45 minutes every day, even on the weekends. Then my partner and I walk our dogs. Then I come home, clean the house, and start writing almost immediately with a cup of coffee. I try and get at least an hour of writing in before 9 a.m. so that I can do that before distraction of the world. But I have to say, I think waking up early is one of the most imperative things to setting my day up correctly. And added to that, it means that going to bed early is one of the key things to my morning routine. I'm sleeping before 10 p.m. every night.
Yeah, I also believe kind of, you know, it doesn't work for everyone, but starting my day early also for me. Just so touching on hobbies. Do you want to share some of your hobbies maybe?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously having 2 dogs, they are a big part of what I do. Twice a day we walk them because we live in the middle of CBD in Cape Town. So that's a big part of my hobby, is just decompressing by walking the dogs. I cook obsessively, so every single day my partner and I cook a fresh meal in the evening from scratch. I make pizza, the whole deal. I really love cooking, so that's a hobby of mine. And then kind of work is sort of a hobby for me. So I'm an obsessive writer, and I have been since I was about 7. So that leads me to write books, and that leads me to record podcasts. And I'm so lucky that I get to talk to some of the most interesting people in the world. My podcast has featured one of the founders of Starbucks, the founder of Electronic Arts, the founder of Moz.com, Ushahidi, all these incredible people. So I've kind of made my work a hobby because I really enjoy working.
That is
It's not for everyone, though.
Yeah, and keep the balance,
Yeah.
But you do that, you mentally, physically, you keep it's important for you. Are you a self-disciplined person, or do you make a point of it? And like, what do you do for self-discipline?
Yeah, self-discipline is a practice for me. It is definitely not something I excel at. I'm actually very good at procrastinating, contrary to what my online persona might think. But a routine definitely helps me be more self-disciplined, and also being very outcomes-based in my thinking. So yesterday morning, on Sunday nights, I didn't sleep at all, and I woke up at 5:30, and I just didn't want to exercise. And I thought, shit, if I don't exercise this morning, I'm not going to sleep tonight, and then I won't exercise tomorrow, and the outcome just unravels itself. So being outcomes-based really helps me with self-discipline, but I am, again, a little bit OCD. So for example, 10 years ago, I stopped smoking. I was a 40-a-day smoker, and I read a book, and the next day stopped smoking and haven't picked one up for 10 years. So I think there is a little bit of self-discipline involved in that. So yes, absolutely. I think self-discipline is important.
Yeah. I'm going to, Nic can either you can copy paste your link in here if you want to, but you can also find Nic's masterclass on his website, which will also be, linked in like his bio that we shared with you earlier. Also like in the post that today you'll be able to get to that from there.
Yeah, you can also, if you're listening, you can just email me. It's hello@nharry.com, and I'll email you all the information, when it's happening, what the costs are, and what you get with it. It's hello@nharry.com.
Right. And then I want to kind of combine, because, there's so many questions coming through, but I want to combine something about staying positive and how to navigate negative or failures and negative thoughts away. How do you stay positive? How do you navigate negative thoughts?
So staying positive is generally quite a challenge for me. I'm a skeptic by nature and a nihilist by belief. So that makes my worldview very interesting and unique. So I'd say the first thing is it's okay if you don't feel positive all the time. That is social media trying to make you feel crappy about living a normal life. So you don't always have to feel good. Feeling depressed and sad and like you aren't achieving is okay. It's normal. As long as it doesn't become the thing you obsess over, you should recognize when you have a bad day, embrace it and move on. The moving on part is often the hard part for most people. And I don't really have a good answer for that. How do I stay motivated? Because from the youngest age, I remember literally writing down goals. And I mean, from 7 or 8 years old, I remember writing down, I want to be a head boy. I want to play first team rugby. I want to do all these things, and getting to matric and going tick, 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 tick. So it's just something I was born with, that I have this burning ambition and motivation to achieve something. But ultimately, as I've gotten older, it all stems from just wanting to live a bit more life. I think in my worldview, we are given this 90 years on earth if we're lucky. And I just want to look back and go, I really gave it all I could. Like I did everything I could do. And so whenever I'm feeling a bit downtrodden, I think to myself, is this it? Like, this is the life? This is what you want? And then I'm like, no, this isn't. This is the life I want. And then I go towards it.
Yeah, that's great. Almost like your North Star.
Yeah.
Being reminded of it. Nic, there's also 2 questions on failure. And I mean, because failure is part of your book, I do want to touch a little bit on that.
Sure.
How do you experience that? And how do you get through that?
So obviously I talk about this a lot, and people mistake my openness about failure with my love for failure. I don't love failure. I absolutely, unequivocally hate it. It's the worst thing about building something that is challenging and hard and that you invest your heart and soul in. But Failure is the only way that you learn. You don't learn from succeeding. You don't learn from nothing being in your way. And there's actually something that's important to bring up here. It's called post-traumatic growth. It is a psychological phenomenon that has been studied, and the theory is really simple. No matter what kind of trauma you have experienced, 80 to 90% of humans recover and excel after that trauma. The trauma invariably makes you a better version of yourself. Once you understand this fundamentally, then failure is something you should work towards. Failure is something to be proud of. It's something to go, I tried and I didn't succeed, but I learned a lesson, and that's okay. And I mean, lots of people's understanding of failure is mistaken. So I don't think that success is the avoidance of failure. That's not how this works. You can't avoid failure towards success. Failure only occurs when you don't try. That for me is how I see failure. So I would rather try and not succeed than not try at all and fail.
That is the best way to look at things. And I guess also because of that, you might have the same mentality than Lauren does around experimentation. Like, you know, if it fails, it was just an experiment. Just an experiment.
100%. That's why you got to work in small increments. And this is another thing that young early founders or first-time founders mistake, is you want to protect things. You don't want to protect things. You want to talk about them. You want to release them. You want to do it as often and frequent as you can, so that the one big release you have isn't completely destroyed because you didn't see the problems coming. The more little incremental failures you have, the more likely you are to adjust and succeed.
Yeah. Also, you remind me of what my first boss said to me. He said, diamonds are made under pressure. I always remember that. Yeah.
And look, my partner's got a great saying, there's a difference between difficult and bad. It's okay if things are difficult. Good things are difficult. But when they get bad, you have a problem.
So true. And we should remember that.
She's a smart person, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's 10 to 1. Thank you so much for the time that you've spent with us. I wish I could spend more time. I've got so many things, and also the energy, the sharing, what you've learned in each year that you've focused on things. Wow. Yeah. You're a good energy to be around, and to even, 8,000 kilometers apart, or miles. I think we're in miles now. So thank you again. I'm sure that the attendees and everyone who's tuned in, but also those who will watch the recording, so grateful for this. To everyone else, as Nic says, he reflects on his day every day. How is he building the life that he wants to live? How is he being happy in that? And what is the changes that he should make? And actually, Lauren is talking about that too, Nic, in her session at 3 o'clock today. She recently just reflected on, the purpose of life. And she said, she wants to have joy. And how do we build this life of joy? So we have half a day left for you, for those of you tuning in live for the other sessions. Enjoy that. Those of the recordings later during the week, we'll be again wrapping up all these wonderful sessions at 6:30 tonight. Wherever you're calling in from those in, I want to say, Australia, New Zealand, hats off, because good night. Have a good night. Those tuning in from 6 a.m. in the States, have a great day. Nic, to you, sending you so much good vibes, good energy, and just so much gratitude for this time and everything that you've brought to this community.
Thank you so much. And listen, follow me on LinkedIn. It's where I do most of my engagements. And remember, email me hello@nharry.com if you want more info on the masterclass.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye.